Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Nafis. Hi, Nilufar. Hello. Happy Valentine, guys. Happy early Valentines. Hi, Jesse. Hello, DJ Mercedes. Hi, Mariam. Hello, happy Valentine to you too, love. So Valentine is tomorrow, guys, but we're doing a joint live with Jeff today. He's an amazing speaker, entrepreneur. He has a genius mind. And I'm sure you're going to love this, but we're going to talk about love. And tomorrow, Sunday, we're probably going to do a live in Farsi. Yeah. But anyhow, we thought that we should start the Valentine a day ahead to get ready. And for some of us who are in a relationship, in a healthy, loving relationships, great. But from my experience or with my private sessions, I see that a lot of us are desperately looking for love and looking for relationships and looking for soulmates. Ooh, hi Ladan, haven't seen you for a while. Yeah, oh, Jeff is here too. Fantastic. Hi, Jeff. Okay, what if we are not in any relationship? We're going to talk about that, hon. We're going to talk about that too. And by the way, guys, after I'm done with this live, I probably go live on Facebook, Sudi_Burnett, for a few seconds. So you can join me over there and we can get more into the details of loneliness and why are we not really attracting love. Okay, miss you too, Ladan. Hi, Faris. Let me know, guys, where are you joining us from? Yeah, hi, Mushtaba, good to have you here. Okay, let me know where you guys joining. Hi, Saye, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Marla June. How is my hand? My hand is becoming much better. I had to go and see this amazing doctor. He's actually a plastic surgeon, and he decided that we should do some stitches. So I got myself a few stitches, and it was painful, I should say. But then again, it's everything in life is lessons, right? Yeah. And I learned to be more efficient. I learned to be using my left hand, although I'm a right-handed. I started learning how to write in left hands and doing everything, taking a shower, cooking and washing and all this stuff. So I'm sure in a few days my hand is going to be all healed, and I'm giving my hand love because I know that this happened since I was distracted. I told you guys a couple of weeks ago, if we preach something, and I have been a preacher, Jeff is sending me a request. Let me talk about this on Facebook. Let's wait and have my guest and welcome my miss. Hello, Jeff.
Good morning.
So good to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, happy Valentine, Jeff.
Yes, happy Valentine.
I am so grateful to have you join me.
Oh, thank you.
And I didn't know how to introduce you because you are doing so many things, and so you're so great. And when you and I were talking last time, guys, I said to Jeff, I said, "What's your sign? Can I expose this information?"
Sure.
Yeah. He said, I'm a Sagittarius. I said, ooh, but you got so much Gemini in you because he has this brilliant mind and he has all these amazing ideas. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you for that and the kind words. I think that maybe because this is more of like a under the umbrella of personal development and self-care and all of that, the way that I maybe think of myself in that space is a little bit like the reluctant coach. And the reason I say reluctant coach is because when we talked before, I told you I actually got into personal development coaches and seminars when I was 12 years old. And I'll give a little
Think about
secret.
that, guys. Think about that. He started getting into this stuff when he was 12 years old. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
so
Yeah.
from a very young age, and what that did was two things. And I'll give a little secret away. I mean, I'm 43 now, so I've been at this for 31 years.
Mhm.
And what that did was two things is one, it allowed me to kind of get certain concepts really deep pretty early on. And the other thing is that I didn't form certain beliefs that I think a lot of people naturally form. And what that to me looks like is like learning a language. So when we're older, we have all different kinds of languages. We have the language that we speak, we have the language of music, and then we have the language, the sub communication language, and the language that we speak to ourselves. And and so I think because I started getting into it at such a young age, it doesn't mean that I haven't had heartache. It doesn't mean that like my life was perfect because I figured some things out. No, I've had all the problems and all the troubles and all that stuff. I think I just had some tools to deal with it. And so what I think gets me here today is that in the last few years, that knowledge that I have has shown up for other people. So it wasn't a decision. It was never a choice or a decision like, I know all this information. I'm going to get out there and help people. Like, I never had that sort of egotistical perspective on it. It was more that I was trying to live my life and do my own thing, but I would have conversations with people and I just naturally had the things to say to them that would help them. I mean, I've helped people with their marriages and their relationships, and there was no I didn't set out to do that. It's just that when I would speak to people, they'd be like, man, you know a lot. And so after a while, I kind of just gave in and said, okay, well, you know, if I know a lot and it helps people, then I guess I have a duty to make that available for people.
Mm-hmm.
How's that for an introduction? Is that a little bit all
That's
right?
beautiful. And how did the transaction happen?
The
You had the transition. How did you went
transition.
through? Yeah, sorry.
Um, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a couple of years, and it was just noticing that like people would seek me out, or I'd just be spending time with somebody and they'd give me a phone call and they'd say, these things. I'll tell you, it was a combination of two things. So I had what occurred at the time as destructive year in 2018. There's a lot that happened. I got a lot of physical ailments. I lost a lot of people. Like a lot of people in my life died, close friends, family members. There was strain within the family. There was a loss of romance and intimacy. And it just kind of occurred like all of this is happening at once. And that just occurred as complete destruction. In that exact same space, what opened up, because when you're dealing with all of that and you're grappling with all of that drama and trauma, you're thinking, well, how can I survive through this? And to me, and I think it's different for everybody, although when I look at a lot of leaders in this space, I see this common thread is that you tap into the concept of service,
Mm-hmm.
because you start realizing, well, man, everything in my life seems to be falling apart, but if I live in service, that seems to be helping others. And if I'm helping other people, then that keeps me going another day. And if I'm helping somebody else, that keeps me going another day. And if I help someone else, that keeps me going another day. And then after a while, you got to do this. And I think a lot of people don't, is you got to look back at where you came from. And so for me, it's like a mountain that you never reach the top of, is that you look back down the mountain and you go, man, I've climbed pretty high,
Mm.
and I've, overcome a lot of obstacles, and I'm pretty high up there at this point. There's no top to this thing, but, I think that was it, was just kind of in learning how to survive through what occurred as suffering. You kind of tap into being at service for others, and then that sort of develops into how you are for others and how you show up for others.
Yeah, like I came to this realization in the spiritual realm, like when um the same thing, when I noticed that so many people are opening up to me, and they really, like, I could have run into a stranger. Remember the other day when you and I was talking, and I said, I'm so open, I don't have any filter with people, and I think I didn't know that at the time. So I could be training with somebody, and then shortly after they would open up their heart and they would get really emotional. And I was like, I remember vividly, once I went to work out with this lady, and I was working as a personal trainer there. And as soon as I went to her house, she says, would you like to have a glass of water? I was sure. And shortly after, she started to open up her heart, and she was crying and stuff. And jokingly, I said, look, you had a 1 hour session with me, 45 minutes is gone. We can continue on your story. Would you like to get into your workout? And then she paused for a second and she said, do you mind if I just talk to you? Is the same pay, whatever. But, and I was like, okay. So eventually that puzzle, like, why is everybody opening up to me and stuff? Then it hit me later on that maybe my mission is even something else. It's not to teach people how to work out or what kind of diet they should have. Maybe there is something deeper here. And then when I got into spiritual realm, I start, the way I view it was like, although we all have our stories and we go through a lot of dramas and trauma stuff, but the minute we change our lens from ourselves, from the I, and I look outside to be at service and I try to help others, somehow I'm feeling better. Like it wasn't I would transform, and it was like my story didn't matter anymore. I didn't have to repeat my story day after day.
I would say, to that, there's, I'm not going to speak to a particular religion because everybody has their own personal beliefs. And I know that the theme of being of service is clearly throughout religions.
Mhm.
If you kind of sacrifice your life to be in service of others, we can speak about it in a kind of secular or generically spiritual way, but that theme shows up in nearly all of the religions. You put your life down, you sacrifice yourself to be a service for others, and the universe or whatever you believe in is going to respond and continue to empower you to be, of more and more service to people.
Mhm. Yeah, but I'm not sure if I mean, for me, that part of sacrifice wasn't there. It was just a decision, or I wasn't even expecting anything.
Mm.
Like I wasn't even thinking, oh, universe, I'm going to be at service and I'm going to do all these good things, and then I'm expecting you to give me this. It was never about me. That in that switch, it was just about others, and there wasn't like, what am I going to get or what am I going to gain from it. And it wasn't a feeling of sacrificing, it was more a feeling of empowerment. Like, I have this ability to help others, and that was more empowering rather than thinking, Am I sacrificing myself? Yet at time, if I be quite transparent, I could look back and I say, oh, wait a second, there's no me anymore. It's like, when do I take time, which are coming to our topics today, love and self-love and that
Hmm.
stuff, that I didn't exist. So it didn't matter how tired or exhausted I was. If somebody said, I need your help right now, I would drop everything. Or I remember one day I caught myself, like I was doing sessions nonstop from 6 a.m. And it was like 5 p.m. and I was starving and I really wanted to have a cup of tea or something. And I wouldn't. I would just continue to go to the next one and to the next one. And then at 5 o'clock, this lady from Canada, somehow she couldn't connect with me through Skype. Like it seems like the universe was like, well, if you're not stopping, we're going to stop you. And then everything stopped. I made a cup of coffee. I ate. And 20 minutes later, she comes on and she says, oh, I fixed my Skype, you know?
Hmm.
So that's that. Now, I want to know how you view love. I know we talked about that the other day, but tell us, what's your view of love?
I'll tell you what I think. And before I do, really quick, I wanted to kind of just speak a little bit to what you just said, because when I used that word sacrifice,
Mhm.
you said no, I didn't sacrifice, but so many times in there you said I didn't exist anymore.
Uh-huh.
Those sorts of things. That's kind of what I'm talking about. I was hungry, but I didn't eat. I was
Right.
thirsty, but I didn't drink. And so that's when I say sacrifice, that's really what I was speaking to, is that you kind of, it's not so much like, I'll talk to you if you pay me money, or I need to eat first. It's, you don't exist anymore. You're now completely in service of another human, and it allows you a certain sort of presence. But yeah,
Gotcha.
but it's good to segue into love. So for me, I actually had a really interesting experience that changed my feelings about what I think love is. And I think that the overarching thing, and I'll tell you the event that happened, but the overarching thing for me is I think we get a little bit lazy with our language. We use the word love 100 different ways to express 100 different things. And so often it's like if I say, well, I love you. Well, that's different than I'm in love with you. And I could love a family member and a friend. I could say I love a colleague. If I say I'm in love with you, that's more of a romantic gesture. I love this. I love being on this call with you. That's kind of using love in a different way. So, we tend to use love in these very different contexts. And I think that sometimes what that does is it dilutes, our perspective. It kind of blurs what love might be. Now, science would have you believe that love is, certain chemicals, it's dopamine and serotonin, and at these various levels in your brain. I had a very spiritual experience, and I don't need to give it play by play, but I was on a beach in San Diego, and I was completely overcome by this sense of peace and joy and kind of in awe of just the world around me. And I very much felt the sensation of falling in love. But there was no human being that was the object of this feeling, and I literally felt these chemicals just start to flush over my body. And I thought, I legitimately was falling in love. I'm like, well, this is the weirdest experience I've ever had, because I'm falling in love, but there's nobody as the object of this. And later on, I started to analyze that question of what is love and what is love not. And I thought back to that experience. So to me, in a very spiritual way, love occurs to me as peace and joy and a little bit of awe. You don't need, like, the world kind of disappears. It's kind of there all at once. You're completely present. It's there
Are you
all at
sure you
once.
weren't on ayahuasca?
I know, right? Or on something, you would think. That to me is is, and I see a comment, I feel like that when I'm doing exercise, it wasn't the same. I've been in that flow state, and I'm not invalidating you. I'm not saying that you don't feel that way. Maybe you do. But it was different than being in a flow state. I've done exercise. I've done, more relaxing, like yoga style. I've done cycling through mountains. It wasn't the same as being in that meditative realm or flow state. It was something so different that it was almost like when you go to if you're going to go to the doctor and they're going to like give you anesthesia or something, and just all of a sudden you start to go a little bit numb, and all of a sudden your body feels just amazing and good. And it was that. It was so hard to describe, but that of just kind of nothing mattered anymore except for this moment right here. And those words, calm, complete and total peace, being at complete and total peace, having just joy for being alive and a little bit of awe or wonderment for my surroundings. I think for me, that's really what I think that love is. How about you?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I had that experience, but there was at the beginning, when we talked about it the other day, when I got into this healing and going through this experiences, I used to see that very often. And there was a, like you're saying, is like there's this pure love, is just nothing that's connecting or nothing that it sticks to give you that meaning. And there's no one there. There's no object, or there isn't anything. And I used to have, I mean, I'm saying use because it used to be more frequent, but I used to feel that, but then I connected to the source. Oh, this is the love between me and source. And I don't know if are you familiar with Rumi? Rumi the poet, yeah. So I read a few of his poem in Farsi, and that's what he talks about. The whole story is about his love affair with God, and first with his mentor Shams, and then he connected to love and stuff. So I somehow connected it to the source, that this is the love affair between me and him. But what you're saying, it wasn't even God or the source or anything. It was just the feel. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think I just didn't want to go there with it because I don't know where anybody's personal, feelings or beliefs are, but I would tend
Our
to agree.
fans here are very spiritual. That's
Yeah,
very
I
fun.
mean, to me, I definitely feel like it's a connection to the creator, and whatever that creator is, if it's a singular being, if it's a collective, whether it's the universe or a God, if that's all the same thing. I definitely feel like in that moment where I was, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like the earth and the earthly, I hate to say the earthly realm, it sounds a little bit bizarre, but just kind of the earthly setting that I was in seemed to kind of disappear. And it was about that connection with source, with God, with creation. And I think that like it can show up when we're with people, but I don't think that it's not like this. If these are two people going like this, especially since it's Valentine's Day weekend, in the context of romance and love and making love, it's not that. It can show up. It can be. So I look at it as something that can become present. So, a good example is if you make love to somebody and there's the afterglow, right? So you have the afterglow, you're both laying there and you both feel wonderful. We actually use the phrase to make love. We use that phrase. And I think, well, what you had was sex. And that's just, if it's male and female, that is just testosterone and estrogen. It's just hormones literally raging, chemicals raging in our body. But afterwards, we might have that sense of peace and joy and all those things. So maybe what we did is we created a space for love to kind of show up and be present for a moment. But I don't think it's something between. It's nothing that the people are transmitting to each other. It's something that emerges when two people allow it to emerge. That's how it occurs for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. Yeah, so we're saying we make love, we turn it into an action, doing something, we making love. But I'm going to be a little, because I'm very open with my audience. I'm gonna share this. When I just started my journey of going through the healing and that stuff, I would meet all these random people. And I remember at one night at this spiritual event, I met two Ryans, two American guys, blue eyes. They looked just identical. And I met them at the same night. And one of them, which I didn't know who he was, we stuck together the whole night. Everybody thought later on we're boyfriend and girlfriend. They asked him to come as a speaker and speak. And he was like Buddha. Like, I was like, oh my God, Buddha has reincarnated. Everybody was hugging him and he was so loving and stuff. And then we started to get intimate with one another. And he was the one who told me. He came one day, the first time we met, and as at the door when I greeted him, we hugged, and it was like the time was like eternity. Like, I don't know how long, maybe it was just a second, but it felt like, woo, we've been hugging each other. And then he had a cold, and I wasn't even working as a healer. So I said to him, all of a sudden, I said, would you like me to do a healing on you? And then he goes, yeah, sure. He lay down on my couch. And as soon as I start putting my hands here and there, he says, by the way, you're doing Reiki. And I was like, what? What's that? And he says, Reiki is a healing modality, which I wasn't into that stuff yet. And then this is where it gets very personal. We start making love, and we weren't really doing anything. The love making was energetic. And as I was laying and he came on top of me, it was like the feeling of ecstasy. It was the feeling of, having an orgasm, and nothing was happening. Everything was just happening with the synergy of the energy and through the breathing. I could only hear him breathe. And then, so now that you're saying we're using this word love making, I learned that later on, that you don't even have to be doing the action, but by sending energy, you could be like love making. So my point is, yeah, maybe the word is not accurate that we make love. Maybe how would we be bringing it into now? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like I always say, I said, meditation is not something that you're doing. Meditation is a state of being. I am meditating, but so often people think meditation is an action that you have to go and do. You have to do daily meditation. No, you have to be to do the meditation.
Yeah, I think a lot about yin and yang.
Mm.
And, I think this might go a little bit off the rails, and I'll keep it in as much as I can. But I think a lot about vibration. I mean, when we're talking energy and we talk about any of that stuff, we're talking vibration. Well, if we have energy vibrating more slowly, we can hear it. It becomes a sound wave. If it vibrates at a certain speed, quite a bit faster, it becomes a color. It becomes something that we can see. So we can measure this. This is not some weird concept in our minds. I mean, this is stuff that we can measure with scopes and instruments. And, these waves have these peaks and troughs. And what happens is, I'm going to give a little bit of a lesson in when you have sound. If a peak hits a trough at the same time, they cancel each other and you have silence. And so there's this very interesting relationship going on within the same frequency range. And I think about this as far as, these concepts of yin and yang and like kind of opposites existing at the same time. And if we have these things like love, we talk about love, we talk about peace, joy, and creating a space for it to show up. then what is, I sometimes will think of that being like a yin and yang of like, well, what's the opposite of that? And what we're trying to do is when we, like you're saying, when we meditate, when we exercise, or when we're with somebody romantically or intimately, we're kind of creating this space where we're pushing away the opposite of peace, which is, chaos and disruption. We're pushing away the opposite of joy, which is sadness and pain. And so we're putting away, sadness, we're pushing away pain, we're pushing away disruption and chaos. And then we create space. And it's all about that. It's all about that. When you meditate, it's all about that silence and creating that quiet, that space. And then what can show up is what your intentions are. And that's why, again, kind of coming back to that idea of love showing up, becoming present, and creating that space for it to become present.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So as you see, some of my audience, the majority of them are single. So
Okay.
take us into the next realm. Like they are saying, why am I still single? And yesterday I was doing a session with one of my clients. It's been a while. We're doing one-on-one session. And her story is that she lives in Canada and she gets somebody to move from another country, come and they visit, and then everything is so rosy and beautiful. And all of a sudden he says, hey, by the way, you're too old for me because I'm thinking about having a family, kids, and that stuff. And she's not old. She's not even 40 years old. So that really hurt her. And now we're going through this process of healing and recovering. And then she's at the point that, okay, so I can see, I can understand that. I talked about resistance a couple of weeks ago, and I said there are 4 factors that I always look into. It's self-love, is worthiness, is deserving and being enough, and those platforms always shows everywhere else. And she said, I'm quite aware of that, but still at times we can catch ourselves. We still think, I said, how would you be worthy? Or if I be in a healthy relationship, someone that really wants me. So what's your take on that?
I would say, because that's a big question, and I think if I try to distill it down to kind of the key core concepts, I would say 2 things. Number one, we are lazy, and when we engage into the flirtatious stage, very early on in the flirtatious stage of romance, a lot of times we throw logic and reason right out the window, and we want to believe that things are a way that they are not. And there's a lot of work that can be done in the space of making something out, making meaning, making a story out of the facts that are happening, right? Oh, she smiled at me. She really likes me. No, she smiled at you. That's what happened. What she did was she smiled at you. The end. Now I could take that and make it mean all sorts of things, but we often do that. He smiled at me. She smiled at me. She waved at me. He waved at me. And we make it mean all sorts of things rather than, because we get kind of a little bit intoxicated. Those chemicals start hitting our brain. We start getting intoxicated. And we often think that it's unromantic to be practical. And in the last year...
And what do you mean? Open that up a little more. What do you mean by that?
So in the last year, I met a number of women that I ended up dating briefly. And I decided this year I was very different. It was kind of my thing for 2020. When I say this year, 2020, going back to kind of January 2020. And I kind of made that choice that I was going to be brutally authentic and brutally honest and have complete integrity, kind of like to my word. What I say is what I say. And
Sorry, you're too fat for my taste.
Well, that's definitely one way of being authentic. That's definitely kind of a physical, topical way. But even
No,
just,
definitely.
I would find myself like I would say something and, it's almost cliche. Oh, so you're saying this? No, I'm not saying this. And kind of from a because what happens is early on, we don't enforce boundaries. It's like, oh, well, I like that person. So I'm going to ignore the fact that they said this thing that is a problem. And
Mhm.
so from the very first encounters, it was kind of having these what we might think of as uncomfortable corrections. No, that's not what I said. What I said was this. Now we can move on cleanly. Are we clear? Okay, now we can move on cleanly. And what it did for me is it removed a little bit of the intoxication of the romance, but it made every interaction clean so that when things went whatever direction they went, even though somebody's heart might be a little bit broken because they were hopeful that something would happen. So like with both of, there were two women in particular that both really wanted something to happen and I didn't. So, but even though they were sad because they wanted something to happen and it didn't, nobody felt wronged.
Mhm.
Nobody felt wronged because I didn't lie. I didn't manipulate. From the very first opening hello, it was complete authenticity and complete honesty and integrity. This is where I'm at. This is who I am right now. This is what I am saying. I mean what I say. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And I think that a lot of times that if you start to expand that beyond, dating in your own city and you
Mhm.
start looking at different states or different countries and you expand that distance, then you're really opening up that possibility where if you're not crystal clear on on removing that intoxication of the romance and just being super clear, super honest, and super authentic, then you're allowing a much greater space for the confusion and the frustration and the hurt. That doesn't solve everybody's problem, but that's just
Yeah.
kind of a general idea in that direction.
Yeah. So, what do you think about this? What is coming to me is, um, I have been single like this. This is what causes us the fear. Um, I have been lonely for so long, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might have been dating a few times and that stuff, but that didn't go. Never heard back from the guy. Something was la la la. So, with that in mind, when okay, my phone just wanted to do an update right now. So, so when I have been experiencing loneliness for so long, and even if I dated or I met someone, I got rejected. So that I go into this relationship or I'm going to on this date with the fear that I might get dropped again. So because of that fear, we kind of see the sign, we see the red lights, but we're like, yeah, but it's still, we still make it is that is okay. Like you said, we're not going to be really authentic because we are fearing that if I really say, or if I come and say, why did you say that? Or I didn't like that, or I don't think that was appropriate, then this is not going to go anywhere either. So what do you think about that?
Well, to unpack that a little bit, and I saw the question about how does that relate to being lazy. Maybe lazy was a lazy word to use. It's just being a little bit more present and vigilant to stay present with your intentions and your interaction with somebody. Um, with what you're saying, if you start to see those signs, and either gender can see those signs, it's not men to women or women to men, then I think that we have to analyze what exactly we want out of that interaction. And if you start to see like, well, somebody's, because often what'll happen is we'll we'll push for the physical, even if we don't think the rest is going to happen, because, hey, sex feels great and everybody wants it. So everybody's, pushing towards that. And I would be willing to bet that some of this unspoken of, well, I'm going into this, I see signs, maybe I'm going to get hurt. If we were to unpack that and analyze it, it's a little bit more like I could see the possibility of something physically happening, but I don't necessarily see the possibility of something spiritual and long lasting happening. I might see the lust, but I don't see the potential for partnership and relationship. So that's where, I'll give you a few things, because there's a few things that, going kind of back to the beginning where we were saying, well, what do we think love is? And it's okay, well, if we think that love is this spiritual thing, this connection to God, then what exactly is it when two people are coming together? Why do we say that I'm in love with you? That was something that we said early on. And I'll give three kind of large umbrellas, because each of these can just be its own thing, and can be its own topic and subject of conversation for a long time. But the three overarching things that I see is we've got to have a physical desire. There's got to be a physical attraction with somebody. That's super basic. It's uncomplicated. Another thing is admiration. We've got to admire that person for some reason. If we really want to kind of be around them and respect them. See, we often think about the opposite, because a lot of people feel disrespected. They feel invisible. Well, if you're feeling disrespected and invisible, if all of the sudden Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela or, Gandhi, if there were these people that throughout history have stood as icons to like unite people, you wouldn't ignore that person. You'd be like, oh my God, there's that person. I want to give them my full attention. So, or when you're in the presence of somebody that you admire tremendously, you're not going to be doing your own thing. You're going to want to be around that energy. You're going to want to be around that person, and you're going to give that person respect. So admiration is a big umbrella. The other is a bit more complicated, but it is incredibly powerful. And that is, we want space for self-expression. We want space for self-expression. And then it's kind of like a two-sided coin. On the other side of that coin, we want acceptance of that self-expression. So what do those two things look like? Well, space for self-expression is you sitting here allowing me to talk. And then when I'm done talking, you say, Jeff, I think you're stupid. Well, I'm going to say, well, you know what? Then I'm done talking and this is over, right? Or same thing, I allow you to talk and I think you're just dumb. I don't like talking to you. I think that what you have to say is stupid. So that's rejection. So we're both allowing the space for that self-expression, but then we're rejecting it. That is incredible. All three of these things are incredibly powerful on their own, because the lust is just like, I lust after this person. I want to be with them. I want to physically be with them. Then we have that admiration, which is, I want to be in this person's world. I want to be around this person. And then with that space being created for self-expression, that's kind of like a best friend. It's like, I want to be around this person so that I can express myself and bring them in to my world. I want to share myself with this person. And I think if you use these three things, which again, each of them is its own category that can just drill down so deep, I think that what happens is when we interact with another person, potentially romantically, one of those things may suffer, but the other two might still be high. Or, men are very visual. Men love beautiful women. So often if she's hot enough, if the admiration isn't there and the space for self-expression is there, the guy's going to completely disrespect himself and say, I just want to have sex with her because she's beautiful enough. And then what you have is that classic case of maybe that guy pulls it off. And then once he had her, he starts to realize that the physical part got satisfied. The other two things are not there. So he starts to disrespect her, not give her attention, all those things. And that's when you start to see that kind of imbalance happen, and that shift. But those are the three things I see. I mean, I know for me, I almost feel like the biggest attractor to me is when somebody allows me that space to express myself. And I feel like I can really be me without judgment. And I want to be around that person and share myself. And again, I'm trying to not get lost when I say all this stuff and bringing it back when you said, why do we think that we end up in these kind of frustrating pain places is because we get lazy. Like I said, we don't stay vigilant and present. We get intoxicated in the chemicals of the attraction to somebody. And we don't step back and say, wait a minute here. Am I physically attracted to this person? Okay, cool. Do I admire this person? Well, are they respecting me? Are they putting effort into me? You know, are they up to something in their life? Do they stand for things? Are they a good moral person? You know, and you start, okay. And then, you know, do I get to be myself around them? Do they allow me to be me, my authentic self? Do they accept that? And again, I think that a lot of times where the pain begins to happen is we're not observant of one of those things or two of those three things failing and calling it out and saying, this isn't there. And I can't move forward with this person until this is addressed. I can't move forward with this person until I admire them or I have respect for them and admire them, or they have respect for me and admire me. I can't move forward with this person until I feel like I can be completely authentic with them. They feel like they can be authentic with me. We don't put the brakes on and really address those issues.
Mm. Okay, I hear you, but maybe the way I'm looking at it, that's a next step. What I'm thinking is, because we couldn't find the lover or our soulmate or whatever for so long, we get into this state of desperation. And when we get to this state of desperation, then once we're going to go on a date, that desperation is so high that I would just don't get deep enough. I'm not going from a place of authenticity, because that desperation and fear that this is not going to work either, I'm going to lose this one too. I can't be authentic enough or stand up and say, hey, I don't think that's right. Do you see what I'm saying?
What I would say to that is that's an issue within you. So you're saying, well, how can we overcome that?
Mm-hmm.
And we can get to that place. And if we can kind of separate these things, then we can realize that different people can satisfy them. I can be around people that I admire all day long, that inspire me to be a better person. There's nothing romantic about that. I can be around my best friends that allow me to open up and talk about my life and express myself. There's no admiration in that. There's no lust or romance in that. And I can be around people that I just want to have sex with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we can separate those three things, then in each interaction, we can say, well, be present to that. Well, what is this person doing for me? And this is kind of where I'm trying to, like, the way that I think about it is, if I see this person, and let's say I'm with a woman, and, you know, kind of a cliche of I'm physically attracted to her, so the lust is there, but maybe I don't see enough about her to admire her. And I don't see enough to admire her yet. And let's say that she just is talking over me at every single turn, and I feel very judged by her. Then it's my responsibility, mine, at that point, to say, who can she be for me? And what do I tell her about that? And so if I want nothing more from her, but the lust is there, then I just need to be honest with her and say, you know what? I think you're gorgeous, and I just want to take you and have sex with you, but really I don't see any other possibility for us. And now I'm standing in a powerful place, because she can reject me and say, well, I don't want you for that. But I'm standing in a powerful place because I'm being authentic with what I want from that person. Mm-hmm. Now, if I see the possibility for something like, I think she's up to something, but I don't quite admire her yet. Or I like her and I admire her, but I feel like she's not really allowing me to express myself yet. If that word yet is there, then if I want there to be more of that possibility for her, then again, I take that responsibility and I communicate that to her. Like, and I'll do that in my interactions. Like if I notice that, like, because this is what'll happen for me a lot. What'll happen for me a lot is I'll get a woman that I'm physically attracted to who is actually allowing me space to be myself, but she's not up to enough in my eyes. There's not enough admiration. And so I'll start asking her specific questions. Tell me about your goals. Tell me about your dreams. Tell me how you want to serve the world. Tell me what you want to, because it doesn't take, climbing a mountain, but I'll start to ask these questions that are specifically targeted in that admiration space and see if I can fill that up higher and raise that up higher, or if I admire this person, I'm physically attracted, but I feel like they're not allowing me to express myself. It's like, again, up to me to say, hey, I really like you. I think you're really cool. I'm just going to start expressing myself just without your permission and see how that goes. Or express to that person that I need to connect with them a little bit deeper. I need to connect with you a little bit deeper and on some things. Let's talk a little bit about, how we grew up or our backgrounds or whatever that is, to allow for that deeper sense of connection with that person. But it takes me being responsible and observant of these things, and then being authentic to what I see with that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. Let's say, like when I was working as a trainer, my advice would have been don't go shopping when you're hungry. Eat before you go, fill up yourself, because if you're going shopping when you're hungry, you're going to indulge and buy a lot of stuff, because when we're hungry, everything looks good, everything tastes good, right? So my advice would have been eat, make yourself full, so when you're going shopping, you're not just going to grab everything and throw it in a good and bad, because you're not going to make the best choice. Now, in this scenario, I'm saying I have been lonely for so many years. I'm desperate. I'm hungry. And that's how I'm going to this date. So what would you recommend if I'm feeling empty, that I haven't been touched or being in love, or it sounds so good, for so long? And I have been rejected so many times, and I'm coming from a place of desperation, hunger, being fearful that I don't want to lose this one or mess up this one. What would be your recommendation that I don't go on a date hungry?
Well, my first response to that is, if I had the answer that solved that for everybody, I'd be the richest person on the planet, right? I would
But
bottle
you're a
it and sell it.
genius, Jeff. We know that.
So, I think that, well, it's such a bigger issue because it's so dynamic. Often we treat, think about it. It's like when you look at religion, religion is like, you shouldn't have sex till you're married. And then on the complete polar opposite side, if you're not going to adhere to religion and you're going to have sex and you don't have that sort of strictness in your life, often it still becomes a prize to be won. It still becomes a trophy. There's only been a couple of like free love movements, and those movements tend to be really condemned and shamed. And there is no simple answer to, I want sex, I'm going on a date, I'm hungry. Like, that's what you're saying. Like, I'm lonely, I'm hungry, I want that physical satisfaction. How do I not contaminate this? The only phrase that just shows up in my brain over and over again is self-respect. Self-respect. And I think that what happens, and I can't speak for women, I can speak for men, and I can say men are pretty guilty of saying what they don't mean in order to get it. You know, they will often manipulate the situation. I would like to think, and this is not me patting myself on the back, but I've turned down a fair amount of sex because I didn't see those other things, and I didn't see a possibility. Generally when that happened, it was because I got to a point where that was the one thing I desired from the person.
Mhm.
I didn't those other two things weren't there, but the other person, they were. And I could tell that that person wanted a relationship with me. I could tell that that person had really intense feelings for me. So in that moment, you know, I had to say, hey, look, you know, like if you want to just have some fun and lighthearted fun, like let's go have lighthearted fun. But beyond that, like I have to be authentic with you and say, I don't really see much other potential. It's super hard. That's super hard. You
Yeah.
know, if you are just looking to have fun, I mean, I think that what I try to do is I try to kind of drive down multiple roads at the same time. And what I mean by that is I'm open to all encounters. And some people don't like that. Some people have a problem with that. That's fine. For me, those people aren't going to be in my life. So for me, it's kind of like if I meet a woman and there's nothing but lust there, it's like, hey, look, let's just observe the fact that that's all that's there and enjoy that. She's not looking for more from me. I'm not looking for more from her. I think that if we can allow ourselves to kind of go down that, but meanwhile, even if I have that chance random encounter with somebody, I'm still looking. Like I would love to be in a committed monogamous relationship with somebody that I'm completely head over heels with, that satisfies all of these things for me. But I'm not going to force it because, you know, I'm horny, right? Like I'm going to say, well, hold on a second here. That's just an urge. That's a physical urge. Does this person satisfy these things or not? And there is no magic because unless we legalize or decriminalize sex workers and we stop shaming that, then there's no good answer. Because that's, to me, that's like where my brain wants to go as an answer. Is fine, decriminalize sex workers, and if you just need to go get that physical urge taken care of, go pay somebody. Go pay somebody, go get it taken care of. Go do that before your date, then go on your date, and you don't have, like, you're not hungry when you're on that date. But we don't decriminalize sex. And then if you're super religious, you're definitely not going to decriminalize sex workers, because if you're super religious, then it's this sacred thing to you. And then there's that whole spectrum in between where, again, it gets kind of treated like the prize or trophy. So I don't know that there is a magic answer that's like, oh yeah, just do this. Try to, you know, come from that place of abundance and just be really as clear as you can and observant as you can and have as much self-respect as you can.
Mhm. So, in another word, we have to be really courageous, just walk in and be ourselves and be as authentic as we can and just say whatever, you know. Um, and I don't know, in the past, my experience has been like I never really cared. Like once I walked in, like I don't care, like whether it goes or it doesn't go. And I wasn't going from a place of desperation or the feelings that I really want this or whatever. And I could have tapped it up to the max, like being even rude and obnoxious. No, I don't think that's right. No, I don't. I'm not. I don't need. And I see that, to my surprise, it's like how much guys take, you know. And I have experienced that with guys, like somebody fall in love with me, he's 15 years younger, he called me, what are you calling me, Michael? Boom. And he calls and he calls and his years and his years. And at time I used to think, what is this? Like, the more you reject guys, the more you're tough and hard and I don't want you, you know, the more they run after you. What do you think that's about?
That works both ways. Men just don't often have the power to make women fight for them. But, you know, I mean, well, think about it, because there's a cliche that married men are the most attractive men. Well, why are married men attractive? Because they're not looking for it. So they're just living their life. And women are like, he doesn't want sex from me. And so they start chasing the guy, right? And, you know, and I've been in 2 very long relationships. I was in a 5.5-year relationship and in a 10-year relationship. And that was very much like that for me because I was a good boy. I didn't cheat. So it's like when I was out there in the world, it's like I wasn't giving off that I'm interested or available energy. And so I was getting so much attention. I think that it's kind of 2 things happening at the same time. One, we value what we put effort into. I don't like fight for or buy, you know, like, because you'll hear this in marketing a lot. You know, we value what we spend a lot of money. No, we value what we put effort into. If you have a Olympic body, you put effort into that body. You know, if you had to save up your money to buy something, you value that thing you saved up your money to buy. And it's no different romantically. We value something that we have to put some degree of effort into. I think that sometimes competition can take over, and I think that's unhealthy where, like you're saying, the more I reject somebody, the more disrespectful I am, the more that they fight. And I'll see the same thing with women where, I mean, I'm not rude or disrespectful, but I've seen women chase guys that are just completely rude and disrespectful to them. And then they find themselves, I think it's because we want closure. We want to win. That's where that competition takes over. It kind of, it shifts from the space of valuing something that we put effort into to just wanting to win, to like to prove that we were right or prove that we could conquer something. And then, you know, often if we do get that thing, once we get it, it's like, okay, cool. Closure. Got it. I'm done. Now I'm going to move over here.
Yeah.
I think that that another thing is that on the other side of that is neediness. And, you know, sadly, neediness is a killer of everything. Often when we see somebody begging for money or begging for food, we want to run the opposite direction and pretend that that person doesn't exist. And that's just kind of, it's this, I think about at a pretty deep level, which we don't really have enough time to, but I often look at like things that are evident in other animals. And I look at like the difference between prey versus something like elephants. So like with elephants, there's like no one's left behind, right? If an elephant is injured or suffering, they'll hang around as a pack until the elephant is better and can join them. But like, you know, I'll watch nature shows, and this strikes me as so crazy when I'll watch nature shows and you'll see like lions and they start attacking like a herd of buffalo or deer or something. And there's, you know, 1 or 2 lions and there's 100 deer. And I'm thinking, all those deer have to do is just turn around. You know, if all those deer turned around, those lions wouldn't stand a chance. But they let one get caught. And then they just run away. So there's something about that, oh, you're in a suffering, needy place. I want to run away from that. Or you're in a suffering, needy place. I want to help. That's rare.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to sex, because with food or money, it's okay. Oh, you're desperate for food. You're desperate for money. Like, I'll give you some money. I'll give you a meal. Oh, you need sex. Like, well, go figure it out. You know, I wish you the best, you know, and we don't tend to, because again, of how sex gets kind of wrapped up in our morality and value systems. But Yeah, and that's true for both genders. You know, that's not unique to one or the other. If either is coming from that place of lack and neediness, then I think ultimately I'm going to come back to what I was saying earlier, though, which is if that's where you're at, then this might rub people's morality wrong, but I would say go get it, try to make that a focus rather than finding like your soulmate or something, because
Yeah.
maybe that's going to contaminate your interaction with your soulmate. It's like just go find somebody, and as long as you are open to it in your morality and your value set, go find somebody that you can get your rocks off with and have fun, and kind of diminish that neediness, diminish that hunger, and then I would say, at that point, you could go have a healthier date with somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of think when we come from a place of desperation, we have that energy of neediness, and that energy of neediness that just push people away. But when you're going like you're kind of empty, whatever, I'm just coming to see if this is going to work or not, but I don't desperately need this. There is that, it's a different sort of energy, and because there is no need or stuff in it, so we get a different reaction or something else. But I also, I'm kind of thinking when I look back, because I'm not like that, thank God. I'm not that rude and obnoxious as I used to be. But today, as I'm looking at things, looking back, I'm thinking maybe those people who I was attracting at that time, they were the one, because we all kind of come in each other's path for the lessons or for learning something. Maybe I was attracting those guys who felt like they're not enough, they're not deserving, and because that program was kind of familiar to them, maybe in their childhood they were abandoned and the parents didn't care, and they got this feeling that they're not lovable or they're not deserving or they're not worthy. Once I would reject them and be like that, they were more running, because that's the app that they had open, worthiness. Or what do you think about that?
I want to, kind of, actually want to take a step back because there's something that kind of hit me that I think might benefit people, and it's something that has benefited me a lot in all aspects of, excuse me, of my life, and that is, there's this concept called frame control. Have you ever heard of frame control?
No.
Okay, so whenever people have an interaction, you have a certain frame of mind. There's a certain lens, a certain context. And there's actually authors that have written on this. There's authors that have written on this in the romantic space. My favorite author wrote about this in the business space because he raises investment capital. And so, in the space of romance, often the frame is woman gets to decide if sex is going to happen, guys trying to get it, right? That's kind of the default frame. Well, in business, if I've got a business and I need to raise investment capital, I'm going to have that exact same interaction. I go into a room full of investors and they're going to say, we've got the money and you want it. What are you going to do for it, right?
Yeah.
So in both those cases, what we call that is the prize frame. So like I said before, the prize. So with the woman, sex is the prize. For the investors, the money is the prize. In both cases, and this is very hard to do if you're coming from a place of desperation, like you're trying to get forget about sex for a minute, like you're trying to get your business off the ground. You only have a very limited time to get your business off the ground before your business is dead in the water. You are needy for that startup capital. You are needy for that investment. So how do you walk into that room and not just exude that neediness to these investors, to these sharks? That's what, like that show Shark Tank. How do you not let the sharks smell the blood?
Mhm.
And you're just going in there like you are the prey.
Yeah.
And what frame control allows us to do, and we don't have enough time to, there are books on the subject, is you have to reframe that interaction. And so with the investors, you've got to reframe the interaction of the world is shifting. There's a need for this solution, and my business is leading the charge. Now, I'm going to have an investor, whether that's you or somebody else. I'm coming from that place of abundance. I'm solving that problem. I'm either going to solve it slow or fast, depending on how much money I get, how soon I get that money. You know, I told you about these games that I'm developing, these
Yeah.
educational games. Well, I'm developing these educational games. These educational games are going to make a huge impact. Am I going to do it slow or am I going to do it fast? So when I talk to an investor, and this is a very real thing for me. So when I start lining up meetings with investors and they start trying to treat the money like the prize, and I need to give away my soul for them to give me a penny. No, I have to reframe that on, I'm on my journey. I'm up to something. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do it slow or fast. You can be a part of it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, when we take that to a romantic space, we have to, and this is more of a challenge for men than it is for women, is to reframe that interaction. So again, like, your sex is not the goal. I'm living my life. I'm up to things. I'm going to do whatever I do. And somebody's going to be there with me. Somebody amazing is going to be on that path with me. Maybe it's you, maybe it's not. But, you know, I hate to say, like, it's your loss if you're not. Like, if you can do that in a way that doesn't come across as being an asshole, you
Yeah.
really do own it authentically. If you own it authentically, you'll win. If you're faking it, then you're just going to butt heads and have conflict. But if you really truly believe that I'm up to something, I'm an amazing person, I've got all this going on, I'm going to do these things with my life, those drive me towards this. This is my moral compass pulling me in this direction. What's that going to do? You know where that falls? Like I said early on, that's, to me, that's an admiration, because the other person starts to admire, like, wow, this person doesn't need me. They're on their path. They're doing that thing. Yes, it's hard to generate when you're hungry, but you must generate it even if you're hungry. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to work on that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that frame control would help people. I think that's a little bit, for me, I wanted that to be there. I wanted to speak about that. The other part, forgive me, I went on that for a bit here. So what was the other thing you were saying? Repeat the question.
Yeah. That's, I was going to ask you, by the way, we're almost past close to an hour.
Okay.
I would like to have another joint live with you. I love to have you again, to have a joint live. Could we still you again? I know you're extremely busy, and do another live maybe next week or so.
Yeah, I'm sure we could work that out. And I see he speaks so fast. Yes, I do. I'm sorry. I do. I
No,
speak, and the more
that's okay.
passionate
By the
I get
way,
even
guys,
faster.
yeah, no, I know she lives in Turkey, so the majority of our audience are Persian. By the way, guys, who do you think Jeff voice sound like? This drives me crazy. I'm thinking, does he sound like Michael Douglas? Does he sound like who's the one, the author I told you the other day, Men Are From Mars,
John
Women.
Gray.
John Gray. I'm thinking, does he
Yeah.
sound like John Gray? Who does he? But anyhow, would you like to tell them that you're also a musician? And
Yeah, well, actually, if anybody looks me up, because I mean, this is on Instagram. I always used Instagram for my music. I kind of use the different platforms for different things. So like, I've got a coaching website, or I use LinkedIn for, various professional things, and I have various websites. So none of this stuff is going to be on my Instagram. I use it for food and for music. That's all I use it for. I'll be like, oh, I cooked this, or I made that. And isn't Instagram where you put food pictures? I mean, isn't so anyway, that's kind
uh-huh.
of what I do with it. But yeah, if I am a musician. I've been a musician for 32 years at this point.
Mhm.
Long time. And I was acting before that. So I've always kind of been a performing artist ever since I was like in preschool or kindergarten.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. We're going to chat and we're going to see when you're available to do another Joan Live. It was lovely having you here. Have a beautiful Saturday and we see you soon.
Thank you for having me. You as well.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye. Okay. So, wasn't he great, guys? What did you think? Did you like Jeff? Did you guys learn something? Write a comment. Let me see. Recently, people do so many things on Instagram. Yeah, Instagram is about everything and everything these days. The live helped you guys? Yes. Yes. Did you learn something? Was it helpful? He's great. Yes. You're welcome, Ladan John. You're welcome. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. What did you guys learn? What was your take on this? What did you pick up? Yes, a lot. Good, good. Yes, Nirvana. Okay. I want you guys. He was so mature and looked so experienced in relationship matters. Can you please tell more about frame that he mentioned? Yeah, was great. I tell you what, guys, I'm going to end this live, but I want you to continue writing comments because I'm going to be doing a lot of lives solely and join lives. And I want to know what you guys are more interested to learn so I can choose the speaker that can help us with those issues. Okay. I'm going to end this live, but in 20 minutes, I'm going to go live on Facebook. Join me over there, Sudi _Burnett. If you guys have some issues, Sahar will help you here. And then we're going to break it down and we're going to get deeper in. Okay. Yes, I'm going to talk about that, honey. How can we attract love? So join me on Facebook in 20 minutes and we'll get more into details. Bye bye, everybody. See you on Facebook, Sudi _Burnett.